I've entitled the lesson this morning, Inspiration Reaffirmed. And if you're like I am, whenever you have an inspiring time, one way or the other, you have to go back to that because those inspiring times don't last always. There we have our challenges, our ups and our downs. So we're reaffirming an inspiration this morning. And the inspiration that I refer to is our retreat on Maui in November, our Thanksgiving retreat, when our good friend, Dr. Carl Simonton, who is a medical doctor and an expert in the field of cancer, was our guest speaker and our teacher all week. And the group that came to this retreat, some 50 of them, many of them had the diagnosis of this particular health challenge. And as we viewed the people as they arrived on that first day, after having gotten up very, very early here on the coast, flying the 5 hours to Maui, coming by bus from the airport out to Kapalua, where our retreat is held, we viewed them. They looked very tired. Many of them were not well. One was on crutches, another in a wheelchair. And they came because they wanted this particular instruction. And one of them in the midst of them said, as we viewed them and greeted them, "Aren't we the motliest looking group you ever saw?" And in a way, they were the motliest looking group at that moment. But I want you to know that a miracle occurred that week. There was such a joy, such a lifting up during that whole week, that it became a tremendous inspiration for me personally. Dr. Simonton brought out that there are three basic areas, according to my view. Now, this is not the total view that he gives in his book, Getting Well Again. But for me, in my notes, there were three areas that he touched that he said was the prerequisite for good health. The first one was our belief structure. The second one, the roles that we play. And the third one, our expression or experience of joy. And he brought close to our attention that these three areas are areas that we need not only to examine when we're not well, but to examine when we are well and to keep working with it. We have a very definite instruction about beliefs. Dr. Simonton said, as we function from our beliefs, we think that which we believe is our reality. As we function from our beliefs, we think that which we believe is our reality. And then he said, but who knows what our reality will be tomorrow? The reason being that we are in a situation in our beliefs where our beliefs are constantly changing. We do not believe the same things today that we did 3 years ago, or perhaps even last week. And yet what we believe is truly our reality. Unity teaches, and this is a paragraph out of Mr. Fillmore's writings, your mind is your world. Your thoughts are the tools with which you carve your life story on the substance of the universe. When you rule your mind, you rule your world. When you choose your thoughts, you choose results. The visible part of your life pours out of your mind, shaped and stamped by your thoughts. I want to read it again. Your mind is your world. Your thoughts are the tools with which you carve your life story on the substance of the universe. When you rule your mind, you rule your world. When you choose your thoughts, you choose results. The visible part of your life pours out of your mind, shaped and stamped by your thoughts. Now, the thoughts that we think are the composites of our beliefs. And therefore, we look at that word belief. And our dictionary tells us it's a state or habit of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in a person, an idea, or a thing, a state or habit of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in a person, idea, or thing. Belief may imply mental acceptance without certainty. In other words, belief, that which you believe, that which I believe it, I say, I believe it. I've believed it all my life. My parents believed it. We all believe it as a community. That which we believe also is that which we accept. Now, always when we talk about belief, we have to talk about a companion word, which is the word faith. And oftentimes we think of faith and belief as synonymous. And so we use them interchangeably, but they are not. Our beliefs change, but our faith never changes. Faith is a spiritual quality of which you are comprised. Faith is a spiritual quality. Paul caught that, he said, it is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is that within you, just as your eyes see physically, there is within every one of us the faith quality, which perceives. And it perceives the truth with a capital T. That's faith. That never changes. It's an activity that goes on within us. But our beliefs change. Our beliefs change. And so as we consider faith, we say, faith is a spiritual faculty that perceives truth. We have beliefs, but we are faith. Now, when Jesus healed, he healed by faith. But he always, if you check your Bible out, I won't say always, he many times, as it is recorded, asked about the person's belief. And the reason he did it was because without their belief, there could be no acceptance of the activity of faith. In Matthew, the 9th chapter, the 28th verse, the blind men came unto him, and Jesus saith unto them, believe ye that I am able to do this? And they said, yea, Lord. In Mark, the 5th chapter, the 36th verse, the ruler of the synagogue's daughter, 12 years old, was assumedly dead. And Jesus was called, and he said, be not afraid, only believe. And she was lifted from that state. In Mark, the 9th chapter, the 22nd through the 24th verses, the father of the son, who was reported to have a dumb spirit, probably epilepsy, said, if thou canst do anything, he said to Jesus. And Jesus said, if thou canst. With God, all things are possible to him who believeth. And the father of the boy cried out with tears, Lord, I believe. Help thou mine unbelief. Now, in all of us, we have areas in which we believe, and then we have lots that is under the category of the unbelief. There's a man that I've been enjoying reading his books just recently. The book, The Road Less Traveled by Dr. Scott Peck, an MD, a psychiatrist. And in it, he says that he tells his patients as he's working with them, he draws a large circle. And then he takes a little notch out of one side of the circle, just a little notch. And he says to them, that notch represents where you are right now in awareness, in your awareness or your belief. And the rest of that circle represents the unconscious, which is the repository of all the unbelief, as well as all the experiences of your soul self. And so when we say, I believe, many times the scale is tipped on the side of the unbelief. When we go to a doctor, do you believe in the doctor? Some people believe totally in the doctor. When you go to a teacher, do you believe in the teacher? There is a certain element that is required in getting help externally, and that is that idea of belief, of acceptance. And then after that flow is established, as it was in the case of Jesus' healings, the faith activity or the reality, the truth, takes over. In this business of unbelief, in the first service, we had Dr. Cruz Acevedo on the front row. He is a skydiver, as well as a good expert on nutrition, and had a very successful seminar here yesterday. He's jumped from airplanes in every state in the United States, including Hawaii, and I asked him if he'd done Alaska, and he said no, but that's his next plan. He believes that he can jump out of an airplane. I don't believe I can. I'm stuck. See? And so are you in the areas of your life where you cannot see yourself doing it. Because seeing is believing, and believing is seeing. And imagination and faith have to work together. They're the perceiving powers of mind. And so when you're in a sense of expressing your beliefs, you're really saying, I can't see myself doing that, or I can see this happening. And in the subject of health, it is essential that we see ourselves well, that we see ourselves strong, that we see ourselves vital, in order for the belief structure to become a reality for us in that sense. Believing requires vision. Dr. Simonton said, and I remind us again, as we function from our beliefs, we think that which we believe in as our reality. You understand that? It is so vital that we get that into consciousness. Now, in truth, with a capital T, our reality is unchanging. It is eternal. It is forever. The spiritual dimension within all manifestation, all possibility with God, all things are possible. That's the truth, reality. But our reality, until it comes up to that level of consciousness, is totally governed by our beliefs. Charles Fillmore says in Talks on Truth, some of the most miraculous cures ever made have been where the healer, and any one of you can be in this position, simply saw perfection in the patient. He saw with the eyes of spirit that which really exists, and the condition conformed to his seeing reality. And of course, that's the only way it's done. From personal experience, in allowing this idea of treatment to come through, the only way you ever help anyone is to truly see them as they are in truth, with a capital T. To see them as the light of the world, to see them as having within them the life that is eternal, to see the wholeness. And when you're around anyone who is really seeing you that way, not just by the way you look, the way you comb your hair, the clothes you have on, or even what you're saying, you know that old word, that which you're saying speaks so loudly I can't, that which you are speaks so loudly I can't hear what you say. You know, in truth, as you really see people the way they really are, they're lifted up. They say, I feel better when you're around. Haven't you had someone around you that kind of makes you feel that way because they look right through and past all your limitations, and they see you as you really are? It's the most wonderful thing in the world. The week on Maui was just that. We dealt with reality, the unchanging truth. The way we build or change our belief structures, and we have to do this, is through affirmations of truth. It's the way in which we really develop a positive, supporting awareness of that which is our reality in truth. And we have to learn to say, I am well and strong. I am vital. I am prospered. I am all of the good things that you possibly can name. And one of my good friends, Charles Roth, who's the minister in Indianapolis, had a little gimmick that he gave his people. It's called tabbing. He would say when something came up, tab it. And tab was from this idea. I totally, accept the belief, B, that God is in charge of whatever. As he brought out total acceptance of the belief in truth was absolutely a priority. And so did Dr. Simonton. So did Dr. Simonton. You see, when you're given the verdict of something as challenging as cancer, you have two ways to go inside yourself. You can choose. This is something we need to really get into consciousness. You stand in that position of choice through free will, of choosing whether you're going to accept the belief in the condition or whether you're going to accept the belief in the ability to overcome that condition, because it's not true in reality. And Carl Simonton, after years of working in this field, came around to the very same things that you and I are agreeing to in this room today. And we saw with our own eyes that motley group of people become radiant, become filled with a sense of vitality, become joyous in the energy that was presented that was true. And I have in my notes, how do you change your belief structure? By just speaking a word once? No, you know that, and I know that. I have right across my page, over and over and over and over and over and over. It's a constant process. As we do this work, we release the full power of faith, and our life conforms to the truth, or we are transformed. As Paul caught the word, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's a work. Okay, belief is one. Two was the roles we play. And Dr. Simonton brought us up sharply to look at ourselves and see what roles we're playing in life. Because as he said, one of the great contributories to depression is trying to be something we aren't. And we've all played roles. I've got some roles down here. I've played these roles, so I'm good at telling you about them. For example, roles oftentimes are pretending. You know, for example, if you say I'm well and strong and you're pretending, you know it if you don't feel well, but you still say it because it's the truth of your being. But pretend is, I like the dictionary's definition, to stretch in front of like a curtain. It's like a veil. Now, some of these other roles are very flimsy. For example, have you ever played the in charge role? I've played in charge. As a matter of fact, I was telling the folks in the first service, my husband before this one, however you say that, my husband allowed me to be in charge. As a matter of fact, it was imperative that I was in charge in my mind most of the time. And so that became a real easy role for me to play. And I, to this day, can walk into any situation and know exactly what everybody should do. And I wonder why it takes them so long to figure it out, you know. And this can get you into all kinds of trouble. It's a heavy role to play. Another role, the rich role. I was telling the folks, too, that when I lived in Toronto years ago, there was a very, very wealthy woman who liked me. And so she bought me a lot of beautiful clothes. And also the proximity from Toronto to New York. We were invited to New York often to speak. And the Unity Center there was in the Waldorf Astoria. And so with my beautiful clothes, speaking in the Waldorf Astoria, I sailed around New York like I was rich, you know. But I had my comeuppance one day when we made reservations at Toots Shores, which was then a very prestigious restaurant in New York City. And my husband and I sailed in. I had a big pink hat, and I was just really in charge of the whole thing, you know. And I sat down, and we ordered. Now, one of the things I didn't know was about a la carte. So I ordered a salad, and he ordered a salad. I ordered a main dish, and he ordered a main dish. I ordered a vegetable, and he ordered a vegetable. And then the waiter brought it, and this was the whole table full of great big bowls, you know. Enough salad for 5 people, both of us, enough of the main dish for 5 people, enough of the vegetables, you know. And we were totally embarrassed. We sat right in the middle of this restaurant, and I looked at the waiter, and I said, why didn't you tell me that this is the way it was? And he said from his height, because those who eat at Toots Shores know. So I gave up the rich role. Then have you ever played the helpless role? That's a good role to play. especially if your car won't work and you don't even know how to lift the hood, you know. So all you have to do is get out and stand beside it and, look helpless. And all the CBs up and down the highway begin saying, there's a woman beside her car. And so you get lots of help with that one. It's not one you'd want to play all the time. There's nothing worse than being a pitiful pearl. Have you ever played the martyr role? I'm the only one who does anything around here. That's another one. Have you ever played the know-it-all or the wise role? And that can trip you up awfully quick, too. Well, when we were on Maui, we looked at the roles that we were playing. And we all took an in-depth look at what we were doing with our lives. And the people who are seriously challenged in this health situation and a life and death situation for many of them look deeply. And it's not easy to do that. It becomes so habitual that we rarely realize that we are doing it. But when we're trying to be something we're not, it's a very, very, not a very good footing. Self-honesty is so important. And then we say, but what am I? If I'm not in charge, I've gone through this. I have really cried lots of times because the feedback I've gotten has been so hard on me, They didn't want me to be in charge, and Phil doesn't want me to be in charge, And I think to myself, what am I? And then I get in the corner and I say, I'm nothing, I know better than that, and I know better than that. And so that's when, those are the good times for us, really. They're the hard times, but they're the good times because you really do face up to yourself. And so you say to yourself, well, who am I really? And Phil and I were having just this discussion just yesterday. He's been working with the idea that he's been saying, I am an energy field, to himself, I am an energy field. And he said, he's been really working. And so I asked him, I said, well, what does that feel like to say, I am an energy field? What do you see inside yourself? What is it like? So we spent some time in exploring that concept. You see, if you're more than body, which you are, and there is a mind, emotional self of you that is very real within you, and we are being told that it is an energy field, then, of course, as you begin to get that into consciousness, one thing it does is it makes you very sure that you're more than the body and more than the roles that you play. And of course, that is essential to healing. This gentleman that I discussed or mentioned earlier about the road less traveled, Dr. Scott Peck, says, what does a life of total dedication to truth mean? It means, first of all, a life of continuous and never-ending, stringent self-examination. And secondly, a life of total dedication to the truth also means a life of willingness to be personally challenged. That's the tough one, like we just said. And third, the third thing that a life of total dedication to the truth means is a life of total honesty. It means a continuous and never-ending process of self-monitoring to assure that our communications, not only the words that we say, but also the way we say them, invariably reflect as accurately as humanly possible the truth or reality as we know it. Total honesty. As I was saying in the first service too, that kind of gets away from, especially if you exaggerate a lot. But when you get into this truth and you find out that you have charge of your life, or may take charge through the God self within, and that you have the responsibility of choosing your thoughts and your words, then you begin this self-examination. And the self-examination oftentimes makes you say, no, it was not 100 people, it was only 10, And I've grown a long way in that, folks. And I've learned a long way in that, as embarrassing as it may seem, when you find yourself speaking less than the truth about anything, yourself included, correct it. Stop right there. It's going to have to be corrected sometime, so you might as well stop right there and make it right. Make it right to yourself. You're the only one you're impressing, yourself. And so that's a wonderful way to feel. In other words, we are consciously aware of our relationship to our world, the effect we have on it, and as true students, whether or not it really represents our spiritual understanding of ourself and others. This is a very important part of healing. And the last part of healing, and the time is up, is joy. It is important to be joyous. And Dr. Simonton really stressed this. And he talked to us about the fact that when you're sick, you're anything but joyous. You're depressed. You feel old. You feel left out. You feel all the negative things that you possibly can think about. And he says depression is the result of trying to be who we're not. Therefore, total acceptance of self as is essential. And as you accept yourself as you are, a sense of humor begins to arise inside yourself. We stimulate joy in our lives. We practice fun activities. And he really stressed this in this particular cancer research. Practice fun activities. And the way he did this for us on Maui, was he brought some juggling balls, a blue one, a red one, a green one, a white one, or a yellow one. And then he began to teach us how to juggle. Now, there were 50 people at the retreat and another 50 who were attending who were residents of Maui. So with 100 people in that room, we all were juggling 3 marshmallows each. Now, if you don't think that makes for fun, you don't know what fun is. And these people all began to be freed up because all of a sudden they were all out of their little separate places and we were all running into each other, getting into each other's marshmallows. He says that when you actually practice fun, whether it's games, whether it's a creative activity such as painting or drawing, dancing, I said to the folks in the first service, in the morning, the minute the water hits Phil Pierson, we have opera all over the house. So I go to the other end of the house and dance or whatever. It's my fun, you know. He says that we must deliberately act out our bottled up energy through creative expression in order for healing to take place. We must deliberately act out our bottled up energy through creative expression in order for healing to take place. So, 1, our beliefs. What do you believe? Really believe? 2, our roles that we are playing. Are they curtains? 3, joy. Having the joy in us. The Maui group miraculously changed before our eyes into smiling, laughing, free, energetic people because the spiritual reality had been brought to the forth. And there was a true acceptance of this in their beliefs. They let go of the burden of false roles, and they joyously express life. I want to say, too, that I think inspiration reaffirmed that one of the greatest inspirations to me was the woman who had the wheelchair. Toward the end of the week, she was walking, and her husband was pushing the wheelchair, you know, just in case, but she was expressing her true self. Well, God bless us as we work together in the truth and as we love each other in this teaching that is so real. We believe in it with all our hearts. Come up to the level of understanding it. Thank you, God. Amen.